Oh, you wouldn't want to leave Hickory very often.
I don't.
Yeah, but you're on, I don't know how this works. I'm not
I think you just talk into it.
Oh, I see, okay. Chad's a coach, you can see. And you're currently, you've had trouble keeping a job. Your resume
Pretty much,
is
yeah.
pretty spotty.
When you don't pay rent, you have to move.
But currently you're aligned with seminary.
3 organizations,
Yeah.
so 3 hats. One is on faculty with Western Seminary. I direct the coaching program. The second is president of Coach Approach Ministries, where we basically do the same things I do at the seminary. I just get paid more for it.
How do you get to be president of something like
You start it
That's
and
what
call
I was
yourself
thinking.
president. On the incorporation document,
That's what
somebody's
I
got to
was-
sign the.
I've got to be president of something before this
Yeah.
is over.
And then the third hat is, it's a very small hat, but a company that we do coaching, coach training, team development, more in the corporate side of things.
SAS?
No, I worked for SAS for a while, but Internal Impact.
All right.
So another company that I kind of help run.
Give us the,
Not yet, but give me time.
give me the church lowdown background, all the stuff there.
How much time do we have?
No, I mean, just thumbnail.
Yeah.
So these folks can contextualize your roles. And
My first role on a church staff was as a senior in college when the church split and they looked at the associate pastor and said, "You're the pastor. Who can be the associate pastor?" "Hey, you." And I became the associate pastor
kind of like you became president.
with a bit less intentionality. I was getting married later that year, and I thought, well, hey, yeah, I need a job.
Yeah.
So I said yes. From there, a student pastor while in seminary, on the convention staff with the North Carolina Baptist State Convention as a leadership consultant. Planted a church in my free time during those years. Then went to work at SAS, which is a software company, doing coaching and coach training, and then to the seminary. Yeah.
So you can tell Chad's got a lot of various exposures to some of the issues that anybody in here can find someplace. He can find some way in your world from some of his background. And so very rich background. Family?
I do have a family.
Yeah, who?
I have a wife, Holly, and 3 children who are in the 3rd, 5th, and 7th grades.
I recommend you stay on the road. It's
the daughter who's in the 7th
grade. It's good for them. Yeah. And it helps your character to not be revealed. All right, so we are very delighted to have Chad. He has the whole morning with us, and it's just going to be great fun. So, Chad, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Reggie.
And let's welcome Chad too.
Thank you. So Reggie was very on the phone when we were talking. How can I say that? He was very interested in the punctuality of the morning, which is actually not how I operate. So this is going to be sort of one of these dynamics today. And so does this thing work? Let's try it. Whoop, it's quick. Wow. It's very quick. There we go. Yeah, that's who I am. So intentionalizing your conversation. I just made this word up. I don't think it exists, intentionalizing. Take a minute to read this, and I want to get your initial responses to what we're going to invest the morning doing. What do you think? What makes you say, hey, I'm into this? And what makes you say, I'm not sure about this? And what makes you say, I am pretty sure I don't like this? Thumbs up on the third way. The third way? Good. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's good. What else? Not a very chit-chatty bunch this morning, are you? Yeah. Either that or you're very slow readers. Yeah. Just too many words. Yeah, I'm sorry. I would try to tweet it. You know, it was much longer. I shortened it this morning.
I was just saying that, the facilitator is involved in the people you're talking to, which is what you're talking about. I think that lot more volume, you know, something.
Yeah. Can I encourage buy-in? That's an interesting phrase. What would be like an upgrade to that word? Buy-in. What's buy-in imply? Ownership. Does imply ownership. It also implies that like we're selling something.
Yeah.
And they would buy into it. And so actually one of the things, interest, ownership, yeah, engagement, good. Somebody else had a hand. I thought either they're your.
Yeah, I like the phrase, "to upward sister," either too casual or resonates.
You know, yeah, it resonates with me. I mean, I vacillate between that all the time. And I didn't mention this when Reggie was kind of doing this little thing that we just did. But I got into coaching about the year 2000. So coaching as a profession, not athletic coaching, more executive coaching. And I should know how to do this. And as my third grade son told me Sunday morning after I just blasted his older brother for not being ready with breakfast and stuff before going to church. After church, his younger brother, my third grade son, says, "Yeah, I think you know what to do. You just have a hard time doing it." He should be here. Yeah, you would get a lot more from him than from me.
Was he instructing you at that point, or was this?
Oh no, he was instructing me. Yeah, I was relating it to, you know, you have a perfect Father in heaven, and then you have me. And he said, "Yeah, I think you know what to do. Sometimes you just struggle to do it." I was like, "Yeah, that's right. That's right." So this is what we're going to do today. And so conversations matter. And having the right kind of conversations can create tremendous value. What kind of value could come from really good conversations? Trust, which, by the way, is an intrinsic value. Sometimes we treat trust as if it would be instrumental in value. That is, if we had trust, it would get us something else. But I would say the narrative of Scripture says trust is actually intrinsically, inherently valuable. So to have trust, good thing. What else? What other kind of value would? Knowledge. Did two people say that at the same time? Oh, you said something else. You did that in different terms. Validation. Knowledge, validation. What else? Understanding, maybe even mutual understanding. Good. What else? Honor. Yeah. And where maybe even both people would be honored. I would say it's true no matter the context, and we could kind of keep this list going. You know, church, family, business. I mentioned that for a few years I worked for a software company, so I got into coaching when I was a consultant with the denomination in North Carolina. We were a denomination of 4,000 churches. I was, in 1999, I would have been 28 years old. And so for some reason, they hired me as a leadership consultant. And I think it was because it was sort of the whole sort of 1999, anybody under 30 who knows how to run a computer and has been a pastor, we need you kind of thing, you know. Yeah. And I can say this without any false humility, a real mistake on their part. What were they thinking to hire me to be a leadership consultant? But they did. Our strategy as consultants is that we would drive to one of those 4,000 churches on a given Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday night. We would pop open our trunk. We would pull out one of these projector things, which, again, 1999 meant you must know what you're doing. You're entrusted with that piece of equipment. And we would flash pretty things on the screen, and we would tell people what to do. Then we would leave about 2 hours later, and nothing would change. And then we would do the same thing a few nights later. And basically, that kept the people in business who serviced our cars and kept the oil changed. Other than that, didn't do a whole lot. And we began to realize that the challenge was that we went in with answers predetermined. We did not have very good conversations. Our conversations produced very little value because we told the same thing to different people and nothing changed. So we kind of stumbled upon this idea of taking less of a consultative approach and more of a coaching approach. We didn't know to call it coaching. The profession, the industry really wasn't that established then. But we went in and instead of telling and giving, we went in asking and discovering. And one of our favorite questions was, hey, let's engage a process where we discover and discern where God is at work and what would it look like to join him there. And we had to kind of check our intentions, because sometimes our intentions were, of course, God is at work growing your church. You're just not joining him in that, in these 7 keys for effective church growth. We really had to go in with a curiosity mindset. Took that same skill set into the business world. The same things that got in the way with our denomination, with our churches, our church leaders, got in the way of software developers promoted to being managers. They didn't know how to engage in effective conversations. Executives in charge of their sales team, they didn't know how to have effective conversations. At home, on Sunday mornings, we don't know how to have effective conversations. So the context, no matter the context, good conversations create tremendous value. The trap is that we can often change our skills and behaviors. That is, we can kind of have these conversational skills, but we don't change the way we think. We don't change the way we're approaching the conversations. And so if you want to upgrade your conversations, you have to start with your mindset. And that's what we're going to focus on for the next little while. So the question is, what's the path from mindset to results? So what would you say? What happens between the deeply held values, assumptions, beliefs? What happens between there and the results that you get? Yeah, because you're probably treat them like a loser, right? Good. What else?
Mindset defines how you perceive and how you will approach it.
So it gives us a starting point that, while not necessarily fatalistic, is pretty doggone determinative in terms of the results that we get. So to use this sister's example, the mindset of this person is a loser, there are only so many options we're going to have from there forward. And so we're going to be pretty limited in the kind of results we could get. Unless the person really is a loser. I'm just kidding. That's not very biblical. So the path goes from mindset to strategies to actions to results. By the way, technology people, you over there, is it important that I talk into this microphone? Because I see a little flashing light on that camera.
100%. We have it recorded here and recorded on the computer over there, so that's just something.
Okay, good. Because I don't like it. Because I can't read while I'm doing that. So the mindset leads to strategies, leads to actions, leads to results. You can see this in like 12 different variations depending on where you look. You could call the mindset values and assumptions. You could call it identity and context. You could call it a lot of different things. But basically the way I'm going to define it, because I'm the one with the cookie thing, mindset, those are my underlying beliefs, assumptions, the context from which I operate, my identity. That is how I see myself and my place in the world, all that good kind of stuff. So you've got identity, context, deeply held values and assumptions. And as someone kind of alluded to, it filters everything else. So you can only go so many places from a particular mindset. Got that? So then that leads to our strategies. Strategies are how we operationalize the mindset. That is how we put it into practice on sort of a meta level. Now, if mindset is way beneath the surface, strategies are also beneath the surface, but we could get to them if we really thought about it for long. So our strategies, those are how I see things, how I show up, underlying patterns, how I think and behave, what I'm doing in the world, my paradigms, attitudes, frames, perspectives. So, got that? Mindset, leads to our strategies, our ways of showing up in the world. Out of our strategies come our actions, the stuff we do, the choices we make, our decisions, how we do things, behaviors, activities, those kinds of things. And they are flexible only within our strategies. Got that? You've seen this before? This seems somewhat familiar to some of you. To whom is it somewhat familiar? Yeah, what am I missing that you would add to it? It's like 3 people in a row. Starting in the back. Yeah. Kevin, what would you add to it? Susan, what would you take away? What does that upgrade you would take away? I asked him what you would add, I'm asking you what you would take away.
I think get into the results sometimes when you think about how the end of started with the results and then how do I have to reshape my conversation and so one of this kind of limited way to get the results when you're trying to think about the results and then how do I contextualize the relationship.
Right. Which is a really good point, because what we see most readily are the results. Sometimes we don't even understand what actions we took, how we contributed to the results. But we see the results. And you're smart enough not to wear a name tag, so I can't call on you. What would you add or take away?
I'd be interested to hear as you go just where you think God's action is in the midst of it.
Good, we're going there. Glad. So I can pay you later for saying that. Results, that's what I get, what I contribute, what I help create.
I'm going to get my name tag.
That would be great. Yeah. See the results that I create? The results could be internal or external. What are examples of internal results? Joy. Where I might change. Yeah, I might actually change my mindset. That would be like an internal result. External results, examples. Someone else has joy, someone else changes. People like, people don't like, get some tasks done, get some projects completed, get that paper published, The neat thing is, and we're not quite able to represent it with this sort of linear table, kind of thing that PowerPoint sort of fits us into, are that the results are filtered by the mindset, but they also can reinforce or challenge the mindset. Typically, unless the results are just so crazy, they will be filtered by and interpreted by the mindset. So that our mindset has a tendency to sort of shove away things that don't fit the mindset, or to interpret them in ways that will fit the mindset. Very rarely, it has to be pretty significant change to actually make an impact that would allow us to begin to change the mindset. So that's the path from mindset to results. I'm going to give you some examples to make this a little bit more tangible. These are not examples dealing with conversations yet. We're going to get there. So example 1, someone says, my identity comes from being liked and accepted. I know these people. Sometimes I am this person. A strategy that might come from that is, I'm going to try to impress people. Because if I impress people, they will accept me, and that's going to help satiate my identity, my mindset. A whole bunch of different actions come out of that. You could dress to impress. You could present a positive self-image in order to try to impress. You could try to fit in. You cannot ever give anyone, and I think it cut off at the bottom, anyone a reason to not like or accept. Those are all these actions. And you can kind of think about those as sort of meta actions or actually tangible actions like, how I do that in this instance right here with this particular person. And we might get some results from those actions. We might actually impress people. But we would also likely be in constant doubt Are they impressed? Are they impressed enough? Are they accepting? Are they rejecting? What's happening? There's pressure. We may have very few truly close friends. We may be spending more than I can afford in these efforts to dress and impress. We could create all these different kinds of results. But notice how it comes from mindset, or strategies, actions. So what if we changed not the mindset, but the strategies? So now the strategy is not if I impress others, but if I please others. If I please others, they will accept me. So now, rather than striving to impress, I strive to please. Whole bunch of different actions come out of it. And you see those, and then you get different results. Right? What would be some different mindsets that this person might benefit from? We're going to be counselors for just a moment. No, we want to change the mindset. So we're going to mess with this. What would be something different we could put in this box? Hopefully something better.
Knowing they're fully loved and accepted by the Lord.
Say it again.
Knowing they're fully loved and accepted by the Lord.
Great. Let's see what would happen if that happened. By the way, I'm not... I didn't pay her to say that. So what if someone said, my identity comes from being God's child, being loved and accepted by God? They may have a whole different set of strategies. One of those strategies might be, since God loves me, I'm free, I'm liberated to love others as I love myself. The strategy might be the golden rule. Treat others the way I would want to be treated. There's this sort of balance that's happening. And now I'm going to, hopefully this clicky thing works, going back and forth. Back to the other example. Just notice these two actions, they could actually remain. So I could choose to continue to volunteer and meet the needs of others, but now I've coupled it with self-care and disciplines, maybe a worshipful life, and different results come out of it. Because I've changed here. This is called going upstream. So it flows that way. The farther upstream we can get, the more leverage we have for changing the kind of results that we get. So questions about this before we apply it to conversations? Yes?
So, I mean, it's essentially just working with someone's motivation, right? It's the mindset motivation, like the why they are doing something. Yes. The why they're thinking is
You know, there's a facilitative strategy that talks about 5 levels of why. So when you ask someone what they're doing and you would say why, and then they give you a response, you say, well, why is that important? And well, why is that important? Well, why is that important? You know, they get kind of annoyed after 3, but you keep going. And you get to those deeply held. So I would say this is deeply held level of motivation or interest, might be. But the thing is that this is not only, this isn't just what we see in the world. It's more kind of the lenses we look through. I mean, so it informs, it filters, it affects what we think the world is about and our place in it. So motivation, I'd say, is part of that. What else? Questions, contributions? So let's apply it to conversations. Well, here's the key points. It's always helpful when you forget what's on your slides. Yep. Oh, yeah. So a shift in your mindset is seismic. It's not just you're changing, the ground beneath you is changing. Everything changes flowing from that. So let's apply it to conversations. So one kind of approach, one mindset for conversations is what we're going to call the control mindset. Again, if you read sort of the organizational psychologist, behavioralist kind of folks, Ardress, he calls this Model 1. He's very creative in one of Paul's things. It's Model 1. Smith and Putnam, some others call it unilateral control, which sounds much more sexy. Unilateral control. And I have totally bastardized their language here, okay? So this is my way of saying some of what they say. The mindset is, and this is subtle, I mean, this is really subtle. None of us are going to say, oh yeah, I can do that. But we all do. It's just really subtle. I see things the way they are. People see it different, they're wrong. Conversation, why do we have conversations? It's about shifting them toward my insights, my ideas, what I think is important, good, whatever. I can control the conversation, I think is what's being cut off there. Evidently, our computers have a hard time talking. Out of that mindset, a variety of strategies. We choose different ones of these given the context, our personality, different factors. Basically, we're trying to push our own agenda. We're trying to stay in control. We try to convince. We try to lead them to the truth, perhaps. Sometimes in the name of Jesus, right? I mean, we're doing this for good, we think. And sometimes for their own good. The actions we take then are some form of like delivery. We're trying to get to them what they're missing, get them the right information, the right insight, maybe trying to get them to buy into what we're selling. So sometimes we tell, sometimes we teach, sometimes we listen for openings so we can, insert the thing that they needed. Lifeway's made about $1 billion on evangelism strategies that follow this mindset. Talk to people long enough for them to bring up a topic that relates to what you want to talk about, and then you slide it in, and you got it. Is that meddling? Did I offend a third or a half of you? A third, probably? Okay. I'm comfortable with that. We could ask leading questions. We could manipulate. Again, we probably wouldn't call it manipulating, but it is manipulating. Somehow controlling, somehow coercing the conversation to turn out and get the results that we want. Sometimes we get the results, sometimes we don't. We get decisions, maybe they accept or reject what we're buying and they're trying to, or what we're selling and trying to get them to buy. Many times the result is disappointment. And again, we could come up with a whole big list of results. So, when have you seen this in practice in your own life, either as the giver or receiver of this approach?
My marriage.
Who said that? Oh, there it is. In your marriage? Are you giving, receiving, or both? What's one example recently that you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh my gosh.
It was the comfortable sharing part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is everything from, our daughter, I'll give you one from my marriage, okay? So our daughter, who's in the 7th grade, started confirmation classes a few weeks ago. And then she decided she didn't need no stinking confirmation classes because she's already baptized, and it just seems like a big waste of time. That means she's in the 7th grade. My wife and I had this, let's talk about it. My whole strategy in that conversation was, she needs to do confirmation. And how can I set this conversation up to prove that point, to get them to my way of thinking about it, so that the results are she goes through confirmation and likes it. Yeah, those were the results I wanted. You don't have to be, too brilliant to know where that went, which was nowhere all that positive. But my intentions were good, sort of. My intentions were also to get my way, which are somewhat satanic. So it's a very typical conversation model. Another conversation model, again, one that I employ quite frequently, would be what I'm going to call casual. Now, the Argyris and Putnam and people, they don't go here, okay? This is just, so if you don't like this, just blame me. But it's casual. It's how Gary see things, how I see things, how you see things. Who cares? By the way, in like 2013, this is a really comfortable place for many of us to be. You know, the conversation is not about movement or change. It just is. Okay. So strategies then would be some form of passivity. Even though we would engage the person in conversation, we're kind of passive. We're not really trying to make anything happen to anybody for any reason or anything like that. So we're trying to maintain equilibrium. We do this when we meet new neighbors. Equilibrium is, if you talk for 5 minutes, I should talk for 5 minutes. There should be some sort of, equality in terms of the amount shared. And by the way, let someone not maintain equilibrium in a casual conversation, and you'll go home and tell your wife or husband about it. All she talked about was herself. All he talked about was himself. We appreciate that kind of equilibrium. There's no obvious agenda, although sometimes we do have an agenda. To make this person like me, get through the checkout line quickly, whatever. We tend to try to keep it comfortable and safe for everyone. Not inherent bad, not inherent good either. And so our actions typically are then some form of back and forth. You talk a little, I'll talk a little, we'll each talk a little, then we'll be done. We tend to show interest, that's polite conversation. Exchange information. That's the key. We try to just exchange information. We were talking this morning, John and I were talking, and we exchanged information. It was a casual conversation, I listened, he listened. It was very nice. We might still also listen for my chance to share, is what's being left out there. Because that's the way polite conversation works, right? And so some results, we'll get to know some stuff about each other. We might have an acquaintance when we're finished. Okay? Casual conversations. Make sense? I ask as I click the clicker. The facilitative is the third way. Facilitative, not a word I came up with, a word from a guy named Roger Schwartz. Roger was a student, a disciple of Ardress, teaches at UNC Chapel Hill, and did a ton of work with us at SAS, the software company where I served for a while. A Jewish guy, and he and I would talk quite frequently about how biblical his model for conversations was. Biblical in the sense of creating a flourishing environment. One that could create what I would call winners all around, instead of winners and losers. Unless they're losers, and no okay. So facilitative, these are my words, these aren't Roger's. God is at work in this person's life. Something positive, keyword, might happen in this conversation. Now, if we change that to something positive will happen in this conversation, we've just shot up to control. By God, we're going to make it happen. It has to happen. We're going to control it so that it happens. This is something positive might happen. What's cut off at the bottom is that growth can happen for either one of us. So it's not about me getting that other person to grow. It's that it could go my way as well. So strategies here would be to partner. So partner is a partnership of equals. I'm not creating a domination here. I'm also not sort of the uber humble, kind of servant here. It's a true partnership of equals. Strategies of exploring, staying curious. I don't know what might happen. I don't know what's next. I wonder. This sense of positive curiosity, not a voyeuristic curiosity. Tell me more. Inquiring minds want to know. But more of a curiosity about what might be going on, what God might be doing. And a willingness to risk and to go deeper. So this is lacking here. You ask your new neighbor too much, and we have risked, and we have felt the pain of that. A facilitative conversation is willing to risk, willing to not keep it safe and comfortable. And the risk isn't just to them, it's also to us. So actions, when you have this mindset, it's more of a discovery set of activities, actions, behaviors, decisions. We ask and try to draw out from the other person. We listen not only to them, but for them. We're going to explore that a little more in just a few minutes. And I can share myself when it's appropriate. So it's not just about getting the other person to talk. It's also about me adding in, but knowing when and how to do that effectively. Very different results. So with this little schema here, what comes up for you? Questions, concerns, comments?
Well, I think it was, I've actually in a relationship with someone that I'm supposed to be kind of the mentor, and when you try, what do you do when you're trying to draw, when you feel this resistance of they are trying to more control, so like there's this sense of they want to turn, you're trying to ask and draw and listen, but then they are trying to control and want you to talk as opposed to allowing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I've got a response. You're not going to like it. We have this sort of narrative that goes on, a script in our heads that we think is too risky to say out loud. Part of the risk in a facilitative mindset is to actually be able to say that. You know, I would like to have a generative conversation, and I get this sense that you are maybe trying to control it, and I'm wondering how you see it. That sounds risky, doesn't it? That sounds like not something you want to run home and try. But you should. How's that? But it's actually being more transparent in our thinking. And I don't mean transparent in our thinking to say, I don't know, I hate your necklace, or whatever. But transparent enough to be able to risk within the conversation, within that context. Does that?
You see that again, the example of giving voice to the thought, you feel it's still trying to control the conversation?
Yeah, so my intent with this conversation is to keep it open and generative and hopefully serve both of us. I'm getting a sense that maybe you would like to control the conversation. And by the way, it would be helpful to give some examples of that.
Well, it's not necessarily control, it's that does not want to open up about themselves. They want to keep the conversation entirely about me. So
Gotcha.
So how do you kind of shift it back to you want them to open up or draw them out?
And this is really neat. So then it would be, and I'm getting the sense that you would prefer not to be open. And how do you see it? And the cool thing is, we can't make them be open. So what does, not to go whatever Latin or whatever here, but what does facilitate mean? It's just like technically, what's the word mean? Facile? Ease. So one who facilitates makes easier what was going to happen or what could happen anyway. It's not alchemy. It's not magic. It's not technique. It's to allow what would happen to happen with greater ease, to facilitate it, to grease the skids, And so if they don't want to open up, if they're not open to being open, well, that's probably not something that's going to happen, that you're not going to make that easier. You're probably making it more difficult, what would happen. And that's why we can't make people join us and facilitate the conversation. But we can choose to enter. Yeah.
But that's another form of control. I can control the conversation, I keep it away from myself. And with all of you, I can control what you want about me. So you can still use the word trying to control the conversation. I'm not.
You could. You might get a really interesting response.
Which may be an opening.
It could be. Yeah. It's an invitation to a different way of talking. But what would be really manipulative would be, I now know how to have an effective conversation, and you don't. So let me control you by getting you to have a conversation the way I want to. That control thing's pretty slick, isn't it? I mean, it kind of gets its way in there. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Who hates this? Or is it like right on the edge of that zip code of not liking it very much? Yeah. What don't you like about it?
I like, well, I like that this is the Holy Spirit movement. It's driven by the Holy Spirit, not driven by doctrine. Because if we bring the theological mindset is hermeneutic, and we all are open about it, that somebody else is a different hermeneutic than I do. That's very scary for people who have wrapped their mind and their whole profession on a certain doctrine.
Yeah.
Be open to the Holy Spirit moving in another, have a generative conversation with someone who has a very different dogmatic doctrine.
Yeah.
Doctrine.
It's very scary. It's very unsettling. And so earlier, when I said a shift here is a seismic shift, intellectually, we all said, oh yeah, kind of over there, I can see it that's happening. When it challenges deeply held values and assumptions, especially those of a theological bent, we don't like that, or we're not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with it. So part of the risk with this mode is that it's risky. Now, where I would come back kind of to the final degree is to say, and if this is true, first of all, if this first word is true, not the whole sentence, just the first word. If the first word is true, we may be able to just chill a little bit, right? Oh, there's a God who might be at work. We don't even need the rest of the sentence, but it's helpful if we think that. We don't have to be in control. We could be open to learning. So let's do some stuff with this. We have some photos, I think, a whole bunch of them, I'm hoping, on the back table. Select one photo. Please do not keep my photos, by the way. I will need these back eventually. Select one photo that represents when you've been involved in a controlling conversation. Giver, receiver, whichever side you choose. Select another photo to represent what it would be like to be involved in a facilitated conversation. Or if you've been in some of those, it would be one that represents what that was like. But at least use your imagination. And then once you get into just ad hoc groups of stories, maybe somebody you haven't worked with yet, little triads, and just share. So you'll have 6 minutes each. Hold the photos up, say this is what it's like, here's what I mean by that, here's what the other one's like, here's what I mean by that, 6 minutes, boom, go to the next person, you get the idea. And we're almost on time.